Some people still doubt it, but after these true supernatural horror stories, it's hard to deny the other side exists. Like in the story you're about to hear, where a group of friends decided to play with a Ouija board and ended up summoning something that wasn't ready to leave. But before we dive into the story, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any terrifying stories, and tell me in the comments what city or country you're watching from. The first time I heard that laugh in my ear, I knew I'd opened a door I shouldn't have. It was in middle school, back when everyone was desperate to prove how brave they were. Me and 3 of my friends, Henry, Tyler, and Lucas, decided to make a homemade Ouija board. You know the kind. Letters scribbled on paper, a plastic cup sliding around like it had a mind of its own. We laughed, cracked jokes, even summoned the devil just to mess around. Because when you're 14, you think you're invincible. But the mood shifted when the cup started moving on its own. We asked who was there, and the cup slid to M, then A-R-I-A, Maria, a kid. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, but I played it off. Yeah, right. Someone's just pushing it. Then came the second message. Will you help me find my doll? We all froze. Lucas, ever the skeptic, scoffed. Sure, where'd you lose it? The cup spelled out, under your bed. Nervous laughter. Lucas pretended to stand up, but I saw his arm break out in goosebumps. We quickly said goodbye, like that ever works, and acted like nothing happened. But the next day, things got weird. I started hearing a child's voice whispering my name when I was home alone. Always soft, always from the hallway or the bathroom. And one night I woke up to the sound of scratching on my pillow, like fingernails dragging slowly across the fabric. I froze. The second I moved, it stopped. But the real nightmare began when I decided to talk to Maria again, alone. I grabbed a plate from the kitchen, drew letters on paper, and placed my fingers on it, trying not to shake. The plate jerked almost immediately, only this time, it wasn't the kid. The response came fast, violent, like something was shoving my fingers. Stop! I yanked my hand back, but the plate kept moving on its own, spelling out, "She lies." Then, click. My bedroom light turned off. Not a power outage, because my sister's nightlight in the next room stayed on. All I could see was a dark figure in the corner, just standing there like it was staring at me. I screamed, and the light flickered back on. The figure was gone. After that, the house was never the same. I'd catch shadows where they shouldn't be. In the hallway, behind the couch, always vanishing when I turned my head. But the worst was her. One night, I woke up to a noise in my sister's room. She was sleeping at our grandma's, so it should have been empty. When I peeked through the cracked door, I saw a tall, thin woman with long, dark hair standing in front of the mirror. She was slowly undressing, like she was getting ready for bed. But her movements were wrong. Too slow. Too jerky. I stopped breathing when she turned her head toward me. I couldn't see her face, just darkness, but I knew she was looking at me. Then she smiled. You can feel a smile in the dark, you know? That chill that tells you weren't supposed to see this. I slammed the door and buried my head under the blankets, praying it was just a nightmare. It wasn't. Because the next day, our housekeepers started asking about the woman in black they'd seen wandering the halls at night. When my doorknob started turning on its own, I finally got it. This thing didn't just want to scare me, it wanted in. After the housekeepers confirmed seeing her, the house became a living nightmare. Every sound made me jump, a glass clinking in the sink, the wind hitting the window. Even my dad snoring sent shivers down my spine. But the worst was the nights. I started getting sleep paralysis. I'd wake up unable to move, with this crushing weight on my chest like someone was sitting on me. And every time there was something in the room, a tall shadow in the corner watching. I could feel the hatred rolling off it, this bitter rage that made the air thick. The first time I squeezed my eyes shut and prayed. The second time it got closer. Then I heard the laugh. Soft, creepy, like someone was whispering right in my ear. I couldn't pretend it was the wind or my imagination. It was her, and every time I heard it, something happened. The closet door would swing open, the mirror would fog up for no reason, or I'd wake up with scratches on my arms. Even my sister, who never believed in this stuff, started noticing. She swore someone whispered her name when she was alone in her room. Once she insisted a pale hand yanked her blanket in the middle of the night. But the worst was when the bathroom door locked with her inside, and something scratched at the wood from the other side, slow, like it was enjoying her panic. I knew it was my fault. I'd opened the door with that stupid Ouija board, and now something had crossed over. And worse, she wasn't alone. One night I woke up to the sound of a child crying, faint, from the hallway. "Where's my doll?" My blood turned to ice. It was Maria, but this time her sobbing was mixed with another sound, dragging footsteps, slow, getting closer to my door. Then, click. My doorknob started to turn, slow, careful, like someone was trying to open it quietly. I barely choked out, "Go away." The knob stopped. For a second, I thought it worked. Then I heard the reply, "I'm already inside." The voice came from under my bed. I didn't think. I bolted out of the room, woke my parents, and begged to leave that house. At first, they thought it was nightmares, but when the housekeepers started refusing night shifts and my dad saw a shadow in the hallway himself, they didn't argue. We moved out in less than a month. And here's the kicker. The day we left, we found an old, dirty doll under my bed. The one Maria had been asking for. Years later, I still have nightmares. Sometimes when I'm alone in the dark, I swear I hear that soft laugh, or a whisper, "Want to play with me?" But I've learned my lesson. Some doors shouldn't be opened. And if you insist on calling out to what's on the other side, well, it might answer, "Creepy, right?" What did you think of that story? On a scale from 0 to 10, what would you rate it? Drop your opinion in the comments. After playing with something she should have never touched, she awakened a presence that changed her life forever. But what happens when the thing haunting you has the face of the person you love most? The next story is about a father who saw his own son inside the house even though he knew his child wasn't there. The silence hit me first. The silence was the first thing that hit me when I walked into the house. Not the usual kind, the quiet that settles in when everyone's out and you're alone. This was wrong, like the house had sucked in a breath and forgotten to let it go. We'd moved to West Plains, Missouri, about 6 months back, and up until then, the place had been nothing but peace. No weird noises, no ghost stories, just the wind rustling the trees in the backyard and the distant rumble of a train passing now and then. But that afternoon, something was off. "Jess?" I tossed my keys onto the kitchen counter, half expecting her voice to call back from somewhere. Nothing. "Ethan." The house looked untouched. No broken dishes, no overturned furniture, but the air felt thick, like someone had vacuumed all the oxygen out of it. Even the old cuckoo clock Jess loved, the one that usually drove me nuts with its tick-tock, tick-tock, had frozen mid-swing. I checked my phone. No missed calls, no texts. Her car was still in the driveway. I moved through the living room, then the backyard, shouting their names. The fridge hummed quietly, like it was trying not to draw attention to itself. I took the stairs, each creak sounding like a warning. "Hello?" My voice echoed back at me, and I felt stupid for even asking. Then I heard it. A laugh. Soft, almost a whisper, drifting from the end of the hallway, from Ethan's room. My pulse spiked, but I forced myself to think straight. He must have come home from school with a friend. Jess forgot to tell me. I clenched my fists and walked toward the room, passing the family photos on the wall that suddenly felt like they were watching me. "Ethan?" The door was cracked open. I pushed it slowly, expecting to see my kid sitting on the floor, playing with his action figures. But the room was empty. Bed made, toys neatly arranged. Just the curtain fluttering in the wind, even though I swear I'd closed that window before I left. Then, movement. Behind me, in the hallway. I spun around on instinct, and there he was. Ethan. Or something wearing him. Standing at the far end of the hall, facing away from me. staring into the bathroom mirror. He wasn't moving, but I could see his reflection in the glass, and the face wasn't right. His mouth was stretched too wide, eyes dark and hollow, like someone had peeled my son out of his own skin and stuffed something else inside. "Ethan?" My voice came out rough, barely recognizable. He turned slowly, and for 1 second, just one, I saw that wrongness. The skin pulled too tight over a grin that wasn't human. Then he blinked, and suddenly it was just Ethan again, looking up at me with his usual bright eyes. "Hey, Dad." My blood turned to ice. Where's your mom?" He pointed toward the stairs, all innocence. "She just got home. She's downstairs." I heard the front door open, Jess's voice calling for me, but I couldn't take my eyes off Ethan, or whatever the hell I'd seen in that mirror. He brushed past me, bounding down the stairs like nothing had happened, and I stood there, frozen, listening to my family laugh in the living room like it was any other day. But I knew. Something had gotten into my house, and now it was wearing my son's face. I forced myself down the stairs, each step heavier than the last. Jess was in the kitchen, unpacking groceries like it was just another Tuesday. Ethan was already at the table, tearing into a pack of cookies, like nothing had happened. "Did you see anything weird today?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. Jess turned, frowning. "What do you mean?" "Nothing." I swallowed hard. I didn't want to scare her, but that image of Ethan in the mirror was burned into my brain. I played it cool, but I started watching. Ethan acted normal, mostly, but every now and then I'd catch him staring at me without blinking, and once when I turned fast, I could have sworn his shadow stretched too long across the floor, like it wasn't his at all. That night, while Jess slept, I lay awake, listening. The house made its usual noises, the floorboards groaning, the wind tapping at the windows. But there was something else, a whisper coming from Ethan's room. I got up and crept down the hall. The door was ajar, like always. I peered through the crack and saw him sitting on his bed, facing away, rocking back and forth like he was talking to someone. But there was no one there. "Ethan?" My voice barely made a sound. He stopped rocking, turned his head slowly until I could see his profile in the dark. And then he smiled. Not a kid's smile, a wide, toothy grin, like his mouth had split too far open. I locked up. Then, just like that, he flopped back onto the pillow and closed his eyes like he'd fallen asleep instantly. I didn't move until sunrise. The next day, I decided to dig. I asked the neighbors if anything strange had ever happened in that house. Old Mrs. Calloway went quiet for a long time before she finally said, "The boy who lived here before, he vanished. They never found him." When I got back, Ethan was in the backyard, playing alone. But when he saw me, he looked up and said, in a voice that wasn't his, "You shouldn't have asked." The kitchen door slammed shut behind me on its own, and I realized, too late, that thing wasn't my son, and now it knew that I knew. How disturbing is that? Seeing someone, or something that looks just like your kid might be one of the most unsettling experiences ever. But some people don't just see it once. They live surrounded by that kind of presence every single day, like in the story you're about to hear now, where a woman moved into a senior apartment building and discovered she wasn't the only resident there. The noise came from below, like someone pounding on the ceiling of the empty apartment underneath. And that's how it all started. My name's Sarah, and back in 2010 I moved into this old retirement building smack in the middle of Chicago. The place had about 28 units, all cramped hallways and that musty carpet smell that never really goes away. I lived on the second floor with my little Maltese, Bella, a fluffy white ball of love who was my whole world. The building seemed peaceful, full of seniors living life at their own pace, until things started getting weird. It started with a noise. I was midway through breakfast, blending a smoothie, when, boom, something slammed against the floor below me. Like someone had taken a sledgehammer to the ceiling. One problem: the woman who lived downstairs, Mrs. Edna, a tiny 80-year-old, had suffered a stroke and died 2 weeks earlier after slipping in the bathroom. The apartment was empty. I tried to brush it off. Old buildings creak, right? They make all kinds of strange noises. But then things started disappearing. Plates, mostly. I had this heirloom porcelain set from my grandma, and suddenly a plate would just vanish. I'd tear the place apart, check every cabinet, nothing. Then weeks later it'd reappear, washed, put away in the wrong spot. I started to feel like I was losing it. And then came the worst part. Bella got sick. Out of nowhere she started coughing, got weak. The vet said lung and heart cancer. In less than a month she was gone. It wrecked me. I hit rock bottom, could barely drag myself out of bed. That's when I decided to adopt Willow, a scrappy mutt full of energy, hoping she'd pull me out of the dark. But something in the apartment didn't like the change. One night, I swear I closed my bedroom door before bed. I woke up at 3 a.m. to find it wide open, swaying slightly, like someone had just walked through. Willow was pressed into the corner, growling low at nothing, or at least, nothing I could see. And the noises got worse. I started hearing footsteps in the hall at night, but when I'd open the door, empty. One morning I jolted awake to the sound of clink clink, coins hitting the living room floor. I got up and there they were, 3 old, tarnished coins scattered on the rug. I never used cash, let alone those kinds of coins. My upstairs neighbor, Carmen, a woman who'd lived there for 20 years, told me the building had a history. "Things happen here," she said in that calm, seen-it-all voice. "Sometimes the old tenants don't like to leave." I didn't want to believe it. But then, one night, I heard a voice. It was low, raspy, like a whisper dragging across the wall of my bedroom. I couldn't make out the words, but Willow's fur stood on end, and she barked like she'd seen the devil himself. Then, boom. Something hit the wall so hard I felt the impact in my chest. That's when I knew. Something was in my apartment, and it wasn't alone. The new tenant downstairs, Lisa, who'd moved in after Mrs. Edna died, knocked on my door a week later. "Hey," she said, "are you hearing stuff too?" Her bulldog, a fearless tank of a dog, kept staring at the corner of her place, growling at nothing. Then one night I woke up knowing someone was in my room. The air was ice cold. Willow was cowering under the bed, trembling. I couldn't move, I could only feel it. A presence standing in the dark, watching me. And then, the closet door creaked open. Slowly, like something inside was pushing it. That's when I saw it. Hanging on the hanger was Bella's collar, the one that had vanished the day she died, and now it was back, clean, dripping, like it had just been washed. The collar was dripping, but it wasn't water. I couldn't scream. The air was so thick it felt like something was sitting on my chest. Willow crawled out from under the bed, hackles raised, barking like the world was ending. The collar swayed, and those dark drops hit the floor. Plink, plink, echoing in the silence. I knew what it was. Blood. I bolted for the door, but it slammed shut in my face so hard I nearly broke my nose. Willow snarled, lunging at nothing, like she was fighting something I couldn't see. The room turned freezing, and then, boom! Something hit the closet so hard the door flew off its hinges. That's when I understood. It wasn't just a ghost, it was Mrs. Edna, and she was pissed. The next day I went to Carmen. She looked at me with those tired eyes and said, "Edna hated dogs. She died 'cause she slipped on the last tenant's dog's pee." My blood turned to ice. Bella had had an accident in the hall weeks before Mrs. Edna's fall, and now Willow was here, and Edna hadn't left. That night, I left every light on. Willow stuck to me like glue, eyes locked on the hallway. I heard dragging sounds like something was crawling across the floor. Shh, shh, like a dress sweeping over carpet. Then the knocking started, first the walls, then the ceiling, and then boom, 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 like something heavy was being hurled to the floor. Willow bolted to the bedroom door, barking her head off, and then, crash, the hallway window exploded on its own. I grabbed Willow and ran to the bathroom, locking the door. Something scratched at the wood on the other side. Slow, deliberate scratch, scratch, scratch. I took a deep breath and shouted, "Miss Edna, I'm sorry." Everything stopped. The silence was worse than the noise. Then, a sigh, long, exhausted, and a smell filled the bathroom. Old lady perfume, the kind that lingers for decades. When I finally opened the door, the apartment was quiet. But in the hallway, right in front of my door, were 3 coins, stacked. I moved out the next day. To this day, when I drive past that building, I look up at my old window, and sometimes the light's on. But nobody lives there. Scary, right? Strange noises in the middle of the night, objects vanishing, voices. Sometimes the place you live has a past that refuses to be forgotten. And there are people who, even far from home, keep seeing things no one else can see. The next story shows what happened when 2 cousins were left home alone and saw something impossible in the hallway. But before we go on, if you've made it this far, it means you're enjoying these stories. So hit that like button to let YouTube know you want more of this kind of content, so you'll never miss another horror story. The hallway in that house was never right. My cousin Jake and I were alone that night. Our parents were out of town, leaving the house so quiet it made your skin crawl. We even tried putting on a comedy movie to lighten the mood, but the sound kept cutting out every time the screen went dark. That's when I saw it, a small, yellowish ball of light drifting slowly down the hallway. Not a car's headlights, not a flickering bulb. It was alive. "Did you see that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Jake's eyes went wide, then, before I could stop him, he bolted toward the hallway. "There was an old man back there," he yelled, stumbling back into the living room, breathless. I froze. An old man? I hadn't seen any old man. Just that eerie light hovering like it was watching us. We decided to check it out. I grabbed my uncle's baseball bat and Jake snatched a flashlight. The hallway was empty, but the air felt thick, like something had just passed through seconds before. We stepped into the dark bedroom, the flashlight beam slicing through the blackness. Nothing. Just that suffocating silence, the kind that screams. "How'd we see different things?" Jake whispered. And that's what got to me. I swear I saw a light. He swears he saw a man. But both were moving the same way, like the house was showing us exactly what it wanted us to see. That house always had its quirks. Glasses falling for no reason, doors slamming when there wasn't a breeze, that constant feeling of being watched, even when you were alone. But that night, things escalated. I knocked on the hallway wall, just to test it. From the other side, 3 sharp raps answered back, like someone was standing right there on the other side of the bricks. My blood turned to ice. "Who the hell was that?" Jake asked. But we both knew nobody was supposed to be there. We locked ourselves in the bedroom, hearts pounding. No footsteps, no voices, just our own ragged breathing. When we finally worked up the nerve to look again, the hallway was empty. But the bedroom door, the one we definitely shut, was now cracked open. The next morning I told my parents everything. My uncle, ever the skeptic, laughed it off. "Old houses creak, kid. It's normal." But my aunt went pale. Later, she pulled me aside and admitted she'd seen the same thing as a kid. A light, a shadow, knocking from the other side of the wall. We tried to brush it off, blame it on exhaustion, overactive imaginations, anything but the truth we both knew deep down. But that week, things got worse. I woke up in the middle of the night to the stench of mildew, like something had rotted inside the walls. I got up to check and nearly stepped on wet footprints, small, barefoot, leading from my bedroom to the hallway. I followed them, hard in my throat, but they vanished right outside the bathroom door. The bathroom was freezing. The light flickered, and for a split second in the mirror, I saw a figure behind me, pale face, hollow eyes. When I spun around, nothing. But the glass was fogged and someone had written a single word in the condensation with their finger. "Run." I bolted back to our room and shook Jake awake. He didn't believe me until he saw the mirror. We wiped it clean, but the next morning the word was back. This time, in blood. We called a priest, a guy who claimed to handle this kind of thing. He walked through the house, sprinkled holy water, mumbled prayers, said the energy was heavy, that something old was waking up, but he couldn't promise it would leave. Sometimes these things feed on fear, he told us, dead serious. The more attention you give it, the stronger it gets. We tried to ignore it, tried to act normal, but the nights were unbearable. Jake started having nightmares, always the same one. A skeletal old man with bony hands dragging him under the bed. He'd wake up with scratches on his legs, even though nothing was there. Me? I saw things while I was awake, shadows in the corner of my eye, whispers when no one was around, and the light, always that damn light floating down the hallway like it was calling me. One night I snapped. I grabbed a lighter and followed it. It led me to the basement, a place we never went. The door, usually locked, was wide open, and in the farthest, darkest corner there was an old suitcase. When I opened it, I nearly threw up. Inside were photos, dozens of them, all of the same family, but the faces were burned, slashed with something sharp, and at the bottom, a death certificate. The name was smudged, but the date was clear, March 19th, 1952. We dug into it later. Turns out the house wasn't built on an indigenous burial ground, no murders on record. But the previous owner, a lonely old man, had died right there, in the same room where we'd heard the knocking. And he wasn't alone. Something older, something darker had been with him. And now, it was with us. The last night we spent there, the air was so thick it was hard to breathe. Doors slammed on their own. Windows rattled. And in the hallway, the light and the shadow appeared together, like they'd finally decided to show themselves fully. The next day, we moved out. But even now, when I close my eyes, I see that hallway, and I know somewhere it's still waiting, and it won't be alone forever. Terrifying, right? What did you think of the story? On a scale from 0 to 10, how would you rate it? Drop your opinion in the comments. I woke up to the mattress dipping, like someone had just sat down on the edge of my bed. My heart hammered before I even opened my eyes. That weight, it wasn't right. It was like the springs groaned under something, or someone. I froze, playing possum, but every hair on the back of my neck stood straight up. The room was pitch black, just a sliver of moonlight sneaking through the gap in the curtains, and I swear I could hear it. Low, raspy breathing that wasn't mine. The night before, it had been the same. Someone or something had come into my room and sat on my bed. Back then, I'd chalked it up to a nightmare. Not this time. The air was ice cold, the kind that seeps into your bones, and there was this weird energy, like the room was packed with something I couldn't see. Then came the smell. Faint, like lavender and baby powder, the kind of scent grandmas wear. And that's when my blood turned to slush. Jesse and Hank, the old couple from upstairs, had died last week. Two sweethearts who always slipped me butterscotch candies when we crossed paths in the hallway. Hank had a heart attack, and Jesse, well, they say she just stopped 2 days later. Never even woke up. We hadn't even had time to miss them properly, and now I was lying here, certain Jesse was in my room. The breathing stopped. The weight on the bed vanished, like someone had stood up without a sound. I didn't dare move, just lay there, listening to the ticking of the wall clock until sunlight started creeping through the curtains. Only then did I finally breathe and sit up, scanning the room. Nothing. No one. But the lavender scent still hung in the air. At breakfast, I nearly spilled my milk when my sister asked why I looked like I'd seen a ghost. "Dude, you're whiter than the wall," she teased, and I forced a laugh. But then my dad mentioned the upstairs apartment was still locked up. Their family wasn't coming to clear it out until next month. I couldn't hold it in. Did anyone come into my room last night?" I asked, trying to sound casual. My mom stopped stirring her coffee and locked eyes with me. "Why? Did you see something?" I hesitated, but then I spilled it. The weight on the bed, the smell, the feeling of being watched. I braced for laughter, for them to call me crazy. But my mom just got this serious look. "Jessie always liked you," she murmured. "If she's back, it's because she needs something." I swallowed hard. Need something? What could a ghost possibly want from me? Before I could ask, my mom leaned in. "Next time, don't pretend to sleep. Ask her what she wants." I nearly choked on my toast. Are you nuts? If it's her, I'm screaming my head off. But my mom just shook her head. Ghosts don't show up for no reason, and if she's back, you'd better find out why. That night, I left the hallway light on and cracked my door open. Every creak made me jump, the building settling, the wind rattling the window. Then, around 3 a.m., I felt it. The air turned frigid again. The curtain twitched even though the window was shut, and then the mattress dipped. Someone had sat down beside me. I was facing away, but I knew if I turned, I'd see something, and this time, I wasn't faking. My mom was right. If it was Jessie, I needed to know why she was here. I took a deep breath, squeezed my eyes shut for a second, and turned. The curtain fluttered again, and in that split second, I saw her. A shadow, darker than the rest of the room. The outline of a small, hunched woman with gray hair perched on the edge of my bed. And then before I could speak, she moved. An icy hand touched my shoulder. Her grip was light, but the cold cut through my pajamas like I was naked in a blizzard. I didn't scream. I couldn't. The shock locked my voice in my throat, and all that came out was a muffled whimper. Jessie, because I knew it was her, didn't say a word. She just sat there, her bony fingers pressing into my shoulder like she was keeping me from bolting. I clenched my eyes shut, willing her to be gone when I looked again. But when I opened them, she was still there. Not solid, not real like a living person. More like a smudge of darkness shaped like a person, flickering in the thick air. But her eyes, I could see those. 2 black pits, but with this faint glow deep inside staring at me. Jessie, I whispered, my voice cracking. She tilted her head slowly like she was recognizing me. Her hand squeezed my shoulder once, almost gentle. But then it got worse. She opened her mouth. No sound came out, but I heard it, not with my ears, inside my head, like a whisper dragged from somewhere far away. I need help. The lavender smell got stronger, almost suffocating, and suddenly an image exploded in my mind. Their apartment right above ours, the dark hallway, something wrong in their bedroom closet. And then, like a fast-forwarded movie, I saw Hank. Not the sweet old man who gave me candy, but a pale corpse. Eyes wide, mouth frozen in a silent scream. I yanked the blanket over my head and curled into a ball, shaking. Get out. Please, just go. I shouted, but my voice was muffled by the comforter. Outside, the bed creaked again. She'd stood up. I didn't look. I couldn't. I stayed like that, trembling, until I heard my dad's footsteps in the hall. What the hell? He barked, throwing open the door. When I finally lowered the blanket, the room was empty. Just the lavender scent lingering and the curtain swaying slightly like someone had just brushed past it. My dad flipped on the light and scanned the room, skeptical. You're white as a sheet. What happened? I swallowed. How do you explain that the sweet old lady from upstairs just showed you her husband's death? How do you say you know without a doubt there's something horrible in their apartment? It was Jessie, I said, and my voice sounded wrong even to me. She showed me something. About Hank. My dad froze, eyes wide. He wasn't the type to buy into this stuff, but that night he didn't argue. Maybe it was how I was shaking like a leaf, or how the air in the room still felt wrong, heavy, like something unnatural had left a stain. He called my mom. She came fast, holding a church candle. If she came to you, it's because she can't move on, she said, lighting the wick. The flame flickered, even though there was no breeze. Something's keeping her here. I looked at her, the vision still fresh in my mind. In their closet, there's something in there. My parents exchanged a glance. We'll handle it tomorrow, my dad said, but he didn't sound convinced, and I knew. Until then, Jessie wasn't leaving. The next morning was tense. My parents whispered in the kitchen, and I overheard my dad say something about calling the super, and we shouldn't go through their stuff. But my mom insisted. If Jessie came to him, it's because she needs us, and if we don't help, she won't go. When my dad finally agreed to go upstairs, I tagged along, if nothing else, to prove I wasn't losing it. Their apartment was still locked, but the super had a spare key. When the door creaked open, a thick smell hit us. Medicine, dust, and something sour like spoiled milk. The place was untouched, like they'd stepped out for groceries and never came back. Even Jesse's slippers were there, neat by the bed. My stomach twisted when we walked into their bedroom. Same floral wallpaper, same old photos on the shelf, and the closet. That damn closet from my vision. My dad hesitated before opening it. "This is breaking and entering," he muttered. But my mom put a hand on his shoulder. "Just a quick look. If there's nothing, we leave." The closet door groaned, and at first it looked normal. Hangers, a few boxes, until my dad moved an old coat, and we saw it. A suitcase. Small, worn leather, locked. No one spoke. We knew. This was what Jesse wanted us to find. My mom lifted it carefully like it might crumble, and set it on the bed. The lock was rusted, but with a sharp tug, my dad got it open. Inside was a yellowed envelope, and inside that, photos. Not the family pictures we'd seen before. These were old, grainy shots of Hank in a military uniform, in places I didn't recognize, and a letter written in shaky handwriting. "If I don't come back, it's because they got me. And if they get me, Jesse, you know what to do. Burn it all, don't let them use it against you." My dad went pale. "What the hell?" That's when we heard it. A slow, dragging shuffle in the hallway. Thump, thump, thump. The bedroom door was ajar, and for a second I swear I saw a shadow standing there. The lavender smell flooded the room again, but this time it came with something else. Damp earth, something rotten. My mom grabbed the candle she'd brought and lit it fast, her hands shaking. "Jesse," she called steady. "We found it, you can go now." The silence was worse than any noise. Even the air stopped moving. And then, like someone had yanked an invisible string, the bedroom door slammed shut on its own. Bang. We all jumped. The candle snuffed out, and then... relief. The weight in the air vanished. The lavender scent disappeared. The apartment felt normal again, like we'd imagined the whole thing. But the suitcase was still open on the bed, and the photos were still there. We never found out what Hank had done, or what he was running from. His family came to clear out the apartment a few weeks later, and my mom gave them the suitcase without explaining much. They didn't even seem to care. Jesse never came back to my room, but to this day, when the wind hits the window just right, I get a chill down my spine. And sometimes late at night, I still wake up thinking I hear a whisper, "Thank you," and then I pull the covers up to my neck and pretend to sleep until the sun comes up. If you've made it this far, you already know. Some stories just stick with you. And after an experience like this, even skeptics start to think twice. If these stories gave you chills or reminded you of something, leave a comment saying, "I believe in the supernatural," just so I know you stayed with me until the end. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories. We share experiences here that not everyone is brave enough to talk about. And of course, drop a like if one of these stories got under your skin, because that tells me it's worth bringing you even more. There's another video right here that will keep the chills going. Click it and come with me. Who knows what else might show up.